What's going on, everybody? We got the Lunch Crew episode 4 with me, Chris Gilmore, Leighton Sheldon here. How's it going, Leighton?
Going great, Chris. How are you today?
Great, great. Leighton, I had something happen. Actually, I was out buying some product for our brakes, and I happened to oversee a process, and maybe assisted a little bit with a friend of mine at a local card shop, and he was assessing and buying a rather nice vintage collection. I know this is your favorite thing in the world to do.
Trying to make me jealous?
Well, it wasn't like Goudy. It was Topps era.
I don't discriminate, man. Vintage is vintage.
I hear you. I hear you. But I got to see a little bit of his assessment, and I
You mean
kind
you mean
of
his process?
his process
Okay.
of how he assesses and purchases cards from walk-ins. And walk-ins, appointments, kind of similar processes. And I wanted to kind of talk to you about what your process is. Like, how do you get the best look when you aren't using an optimal setup? Because you do a lot of like on the road stuff where maybe you don't have the best lighting or the best tools. I wanted to kind of get your take on how you navigate that.
Sure. So in general, I go prepared. So if I'm driving, it's a little bit easier than
Mhm.
flying, but I'll explain and share with you the following tools I bring with me when I'm assessing what could be a five-figure plus vintage card collection. So I'll make sure I bring a loop. The loop I bring is 10x magnification. The reason why I bring that is just because if you want to try to see like a particular corner in detail or something really close up, of course, it helps to magnify it. I caution folks who think that they should get, for example, like a 20x magnifier or a 25x, loop. And the reason why you don't want that is because you're going to end up seeing flaws that the card companies actually will not be using the same magnification. So it'll be very, very difficult for you to figure out what your card's going to grade if you're looking at it under a different lens than the grading companies are looking at
That's something that I've always held to as well with the magnification. You don't want to disqualify a card that a grading company, I mean, you don't want to cheat yourself out of grade. You want to submit it anyway, right?
it. Yeah, listen, something like that. So that's the first tool. The second tool, and I remember the first few times I did this, walking into someone's home, they're like, we have a light. I'm like, yeah, but you have a light from above, and I'm trying to recreate, if you will, Chris, right, my desk in my office, and it's not the easiest thing to do, as you just mentioned, on the road. So I will bring a halogen lamp. You can usually purchase this from Staples for 30, 40, or $50. I actually left it at the last deal I was at. I forgot when I was packing up because I ran out of room in the car. We actually had our very own Rocco from the VB community pick up the rest, but the gentleman had a light in a different area. And thankfully, it's affordable to leave behind if you have to. But it has absolutely saved me and our company, a lot of money and heartache because that halogen lamp really does recreate that grading environment when I'm trying to assess a card or cards as to what I think they might grade with PSA, SGC, or whatever grading company you have of your choice.
Correct. That's like I know with modern like it kind of changes a little bit because I really don't use magnification on most modern because they're not using it. There's no way they're using magnification on these bulk modern cards.
No, I agree. But one of the things I did want to address, which was interesting, that kind of started your whole question, for the topic of what I bring with me on the road
Hmm.
for episode 4. I can't believe it, of the Lunch Crew. So, Chris, I'll bring a screwdriver with various different sizes and
Yeah.
flat and Phillips. And once again, people are like, "Oh, I have one in the shed." And I'm like, sir, I flew from or drove, 6 hours away. I don't want to lose 20 minutes fumbling for a screwdriver. I never say it like this. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, I come prepared. They're like, are you a Boy Scout? I'm like, well, I was for a year or two when I was much younger. But the point being is I've done this before. It's not my first rodeo. So the screwdriver really helps. And Chris, the reason why I wanted to bring it up is even still today, there are people who are bringing in cards, to our offices here, our store in Millburn, New Jersey, or they send them in through the mail, and they will be in screw cases that have been in there since the 80s. And you're like, this is not a good idea. And it's a crapshoot as to, are you going to see the wrinkles, the creases, are the cards going to stick to the actual screwed down holder itself? So I mean, there's a myriad of issues that happen. With the cards being stored in screw down holders for prolonged periods of time.
What do you do if the customer won't let you remove it out of the screw down?
It's pretty simple. So if it's a really expensive card, I'll just pass, take it out of the group, tell them they should get it graded themselves, and let me know when they get it back from grading.
Great, great. Yeah, like that was kind of the situation I was looking at. Like the guy said, I really don't want him out of the screw down, and he took a risk, and it bit him on a couple. So yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
Listen, I just think that there's no reason to be a hero, and I'll
Mm.
close with this. And this has nothing to do with a tool, but it has to do with your noggin. It's very easy to get caught up looking at cards, especially vintage, right? Like, you're seeing maybe a shoebox collection that's been stored away for a long time. And you might have been looking at the fronts of it and you're like, oh my God, you can't even think straight at this point, right? I've seen this happen on our very own staff, and I've seen this happen with, some of my constituents, if you will, some of my peers. People get so excited by the front of the card. Every card has two sides.
Oh yeah,
Don't forget to turn it over. It could be stamped, could have paper loss, could have a myriad of surface issues that you do not see from the front. You got to make sure you turn it over.
yeah. The way these are printed, the front can be dead centered, and the back can be like miscut. The back can be half on the back. All right. It was on the same trip when I noticed another thing. I was there to buy 2023 Prism Draft basketball. 2023 Draft basketball is really good this year because of the Wimbayama chase, the Wimbayama factor. And it's different now because you can hit a $5,000 card from Prism Draft where you've never been able to do that in Prism Draft basketball before. Um, it's caused kind of a secondary market run on Prism Draft, which we did not see this even at the height of Zion Mania. This is different. But having said that, the boxes came out on the wholesale market. I kind of pull back the cloth a little bit and talk about like actual dollars in the wholesale market. Came out at like 185 through distributors. Now, even though none of the prices of individual cards are beyond that one, are beyond their starting point. Some of them have went down some, but the Wimbayamas are where they are at release. There's been no change in that Wimbayama, but yet the demand on boxes has pushed the boxes up a good 30%. It's kind of what you see happen when the product cycles get a little dry and the breakers, like it's the breakers doing this. When we go scramble for product to put in our brakes so that we have a show to run, we can push up the price of wax without the price of the cards going up. And I would say to the consumer, kind of keep an eye on that and go, wait a minute, this price is up 30%, but yet the singles are stale. Singles are stale. I'm gonna zig where everybody else is at. Everybody else zags, and I'm gonna buy something else. That's kind of where I would go as a consumer. What do you think about that?
Well, listen, Chris, you make a great point, and I understand because I've seen it. Right, as one of the owners of Vintage Breaks over the last several years, I've seen this phenomenon. But I would argue that something else actually happened with draft.
Okay.
So my take is this: draft came out, even though we knew Wemby was going to be in it, and even though we knew Wemby was going to have some cool inserts. If you had said, Chris, because we didn't talk about this before the product came out, it would have been fun to do offline or even on camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what do we think a color blast is going to sell for? What do we think a gold prism is going to sell for? I have a feeling that, at least for me, because I tend to be conservative, especially with modern, my estimates would have come in low. So I think what happened was everyone knew Wemby was going to be in it, Chris. So that wasn't a secret.
Yeah.
And everyone also knows it's pre NBA. So, like, meaning if you don't want it not in an NBA uniform, don't buy it. So there's no secret there. I think the secret was people are, as you just said, Chris, this is going to exceed the Zion craze.
Mhm.
And remember, LeBron, as much as he was touted in '03, that was the first year of exquisite basketball. So there was not a lot of acceptance to be happening yet. That happened later on. Even though it was a desired card, the price, the maturity of that price and the value increasing on the LeBron didn't happen till later on. So, Chris, I would argue with that with the draft, myself included, I am not estimating, at least right now, the demand for Wemby. And so what I think happened was that the price of the product was reasonable when it came out and was going to be consumed at that price. However, when people saw what Wemby's were going for, because remember, Chris, Panini doesn't put out any guidance what the secondary market should be for the golds, for the color blast, for the rarities that are coming out of these boxes. I think it was simply supply and demand. People saw what was possible, the chase, and they're like, wait a minute, a Wemby's going to be 5,000 or 7,000? I thought it was going to be 2,000. I'm going to buy myself a box. Well, Chris, if every average or somewhat passive basketball collector was like, I'll rip a box and draft. It's affordable. It's $200, just south of that. I think that's what happened. That's my take.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a major chunk of it. Like, the sticker shock. Wait a minute, and the thing that got me is not even like the $5,000 cards. It's the fact that a Prism Silver, a Wimbayama, came out the gate at $200 for a draft Prism Silver. You know what a Zion came out at the height of Zion Mania? Because I tracked this. It was $85.
Yeah, well,
Wimb
I mean, listen, that's a few years ago now. So inflation, craziness. And as you said, Chris, and maybe we'll end on this point, this part of the discussion for today's show is keep in mind where the particular product that you're consuming is coming out in the cycle of new products. Because you're right, Chris, great point. If there's 11 other products and then it stands out, well, then it's a keeper. But if it's a light cycle of products, that's something to be aware of, because sometimes that demand has nowhere else to go. So it
mm-hmm.
goes in on a product which maybe doesn't deserve it. But once again, the price point's there, the chase is there, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I do think that's where we are right now. Just not a whole lot out, not a whole lot going on, especially in basketball. It's the only release.
Well,
Like,
basketball
yeah,
especially, yeah. We're
yeah.
still ways off from hoops and anything with a pro uniform.
Well, great. Well, great. So Leighton, as we do here on the Lunch Crew, as we do both do professionally, we like to sell cards, don't we?
We do. I'd rather buy them though. I'd rather buy them.
Yeah, buying them is definitely more fun. But let's see what we've got here. Let's
So for
see.
those that are just joining us on the Lunch Crew episode 4 for the first time, as Chris is getting everything ready, we're going to offer several cards for sale every week. We're going to talk about why we chose them, what the price is, and if you'd like to actually buy this card, it'll be available on our website at vintagebreaks.com. If you have any questions, you can always DM us, drop us a message. But we're doing this. We think that it's fun content. And if you want to see a different angle or it done in a different fashion on our show, please message us. We'd love to hear your feedback.
All right. Also, vblunchcrew.com. If you hit today's cards, you can go to a link of all of today's cards up. Here's the first one. It's the Gil Hodges. Cat, is that a no? It's a postcard.
It is. This is a Dormond Company postcard from the 53 to 55 range. It is graded in SGC 8.5. And the reason why I was offering it this week, Chris, is because, a lot of folks don't realize that grading companies will actually encapsulate postcards that are
Hmm.
sports related. And I guess to be fair, maybe, from outside the sports realm as well. This in particular was a very popular postcard. I don't know if PSA currently grades them. I know SGC does. This one's graded 8.5, and we're pricing it at $80 delivered. And for whatever it's worth, I think that's a great deal because the last PSA 8s have been selling for about $80, and this is an 8.5. So if you want to buy a PSA 9, I think it's on eBay for about 150, $175. This is a nice in between. And so for a Hall of Famer that has a beautiful image on a color postcard from the 50s, I thought it was a pretty cool thing to offer.
I really want these to come back. Like, I wish stadiums sold these. Like Topps made a run of these for stadiums. I like they exist in now in terms of like box toppers for retro products. Like Ginner will
Sure.
put a box topper in them. I wish they existed in drugstores.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be cool. I would send them. You'd get one a month from me, just the random
Yeah.
players. Here's a even like football. Here's a Zach Wilson in honor in honor of the Jets win. Well, from a Hall of Famer here to another, like as close to a lock for a Hall of Famer as I've ever seen. We have this 2011 finest Mike Trout rookie in a PSA 8. It's like I actually submitted this. It's not the grade I wanted, but it's the grade I got, so it's the grade I got to live with. Interesting thing about this on the PSA website, if you're an animal like me and you sit there and you hit refresh on PSA's website all day because I'm a glutton for punishment and pain, uh, you will see just after they hit the graded, you will see that image adjust. And when that image adjusts, this thing had a 9 on it. Then it went to QA and it had an 8 after
I've never
QA
seen that
1.
before, Chris. Oh my god.
It's probably best that you don't, Leighton.
Oh, well, I mean, to be fair, yeah, I'm glad I'm not hitting refresh and stuff, but Jesus criminy. If I thought I
Yeah,
had like I don't know, a Mantle coming back in an 8 and they changed it to a 7, you're like, are you
yeah,
kidding me? What? You
yeah.
sent me the wrong card, folks.
Yeah, this card had a 9 on it, and after
Oh.
QA, the QA grader said, "Hey, no, this is an 8.
So
You didn't."
Chris, for those that are listening, maybe not tuning in live, I'd like you to answer for the audience, why would you not crack it out if it was on the cusp of a 9, you didn't get the grade you wanted? Try to share with the audience what the scoop is on that.
Well, I mean, in the case of this card, the squeeze isn't worth the juice. A nine's gonna run you around what 250, 275, and eight's 150, $100 difference. You may be able to get a nine on it if you submitted it a couple times, but you're looking at a couple months and probably two more grading fees for $100 bump. And for me, it's just not worth that on this card. Now there are cards I have done that before on. But and by the way, that's a lot riskier because you do upcharges every way, every way. The way I do uh, bumps in modern is if PSA gives it a lower grade than I think it should get, I'll send it to BGS because BGS doesn't upcharge, and that to me that's the only use case for BGS right now is the fact that they don't upcharge and you can take advantage of that.
Interesting. So, for whatever it's worth, Chris, if this was my card, I would have cracked it out. I would have shipped it on the slow boat, and I would have hoped for the 9. But realize I do collect trout. It's one of the few guys I collect a little bit of. Modern. If I didn't just buy an
Hmm.
X Factor of the same card from our community, who actually hit it on our show at vintagebreaks.com. By the way, you can tune in and watch us on YouTube 7 days a week at youtube.com/vintagebreaks. We're breaking for hours every single day, and it really does run the gamut from 2011 Finest Baseball to 1977 Topps Baseball to 1984 Donruss Baseball. I mean, lots of fan favorites in between. And to be fair, we just got in a Topps Gilded case. So really,
Nice.
we're all over the board. That's part of the reason why people enjoy tuning in and watching us live. They never know what they're going to see. All right, Chris. Well, if no one buys it, I think I'm going to buy it, crack it out, send it in, and I'll keep everyone posted.
There you go. Actually, this card, that X Factor you bought from Josh Pugh, this is the other one he hit in that same break. I bought it from him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you bought the X, that 9, dang it. and I bought the one that
I
8.
think we got it graded for him, though, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah, we got it graded for him.
Yeah.
We got the 9 graded for him. He chose not to grade the 8. I bought the
Okay.
8 from him and I graded it. Whereas the
Okay.
9, yeah, he sent through.
Sure.
So the next card, back to Vintageville. Is that a actual town? I don't know. We got it's the Hodges again. It's the wrong file name. We're looking for that one. Is a wonderful T206 of Red Ames.
Yeah, so this one is $100 delivered. It's graded SGC3. Definitely looks nicer than a 3. Looks like a 4-ish with great eye appeal. But if you flip it over, it's got the polar bear back, which is a little bit more desirable. And in particular, a lot of the polar bear backs, especially at the grade of 3, are going to be severely stained. This one in particular has a really clean back. And so if you look at what threes have been selling for with a regular common sweet cap or Piedmont back, they've been selling for 125 to 150. This particular week, I'm offering you an awesome deal at $100 delivered for a card that probably should be selling for 150 to 175 easily on eBay. But I figure I'm saving the fees. Thanksgiving and the holidays around the corner, and I wanted to make sure I presented two really good deals on the vintage cards I was offering today on the lunch crew. But more importantly, there's only about 8 weeks left in the year, and I want to make sure as heck, that I beat Chris in terms of total cards sold on the lunch crew.
Well, I got you last week. I got you last week.
I know, I know.
It's a little tougher because I'm doing modern. You're doing all this like pieces of history, and I'm doing like 19-year-old Dominican shortstop. All right. Speaking of prospects, next card is one of the top power hitting prospects in all of baseball. I thought he was going to get a chance, but the chance this year, but that's not. Well, he did get called up, but he didn't really get a chance to make any noise. This is Tampa Bay Rays Junior Caminero. This is a slick middle infielder that's also got. He's out of that Miguel Tejada mode, that big body shortstop that can still run and fill the position, but can also put up a 9-1 OPS. The guy's a thumper. The question is he going to do it at the big league level? This is the low end product, a mega box, but it is a PSA 10. I got that out there as $55. If just for comparison, if he comes and lights it up, the Ellie De La Cruz, when he came up and lighted up, went to $200 in this. So there's some room in this. The
Nice.
only reason I'm selling this because I got a handful of them, and I figured let somebody else participate. You know.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, I appreciate you getting the cards ready and offering them on this week's episode of the Lunch Crew. Tell me about some of the new releases that are coming out this week. Some of them are cool.
I mean, some of them are better than others, just like all releases. 2023 Bowman Sterling Baseball is gonna be great this year. Not only do we have the first Bowman crew, this was a great year for first Bowman. Some of these guys need a little bit of time, like Ethan Salas. Ethan Salas is the youngest player to ever start a spring training game at 16.
Wow.
Um, well, in the modern era, because Bob Feller kind of blew all that out of the water back in the day. Youngest player in the modern era to start a spring training game. And especially at catcher, that's really difficult to do because catcher takes a little bit of maturity that other positions just don't, right? Not only does it have the first Bowman class from this year, which is stacked, it's also got a really stacked rookie logo class that I think people sleep on a bit if that were possible. Uh, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutzman with the Orioles, uh, two centerpieces of Major League Baseball for the next 10 years. That's what it looks like to me. Like you can always be wrong about these things, and they can always get hurt or whatever, or just fizzle out. But you also got Corbin Carroll, Michael Harris, and I'm sure I'm missing some prospects, but there's just so many in this class.
Now it's going to be. I think it's going to be a fun class to be going after in the product. And Bowman Sterling is one of those where I like the way that they present it in the five little boxes,
Hmm.
in a master hobby box. And I mean, I certainly don't know that much about the pricing, but um, as much as I know that baseball is very popular with the vintage breaks community, I myself uh, love basketball. I mean, I like baseball, but tell me about the McDonald's All American. Is there going to be hype around Bronny James or no because of his health issues? Or tell me, Chris, what's going on?
Well, I mean, it's a congenital heart failure, and like it was really not heart failure, a congenital heart condition. But from what I understand, it's not one that should affect him long term, as long as they know it's there. And it can be medicated around, it can be trained around, it can be prepared around. I don't think the heart scare is really going to affect anything Bronny James. I think the only thing that really affects Bronny James is that last name he has. Like, I don't think anyone's expecting Bronny James to come up and be a number one pick. Like he hasn't shown any of that in his career, but it's still cool that this is LeBron James' son, and LeBron James has been good enough that the legacy of his son will carry a lot of value in the hobby. And he's got his first autograph coming out in 2023 Topps Chrome All American McDonald's. I emphasize the word chrome because last year they weren't all chrome. This year they have fixed that mistake and it is now a chrome product. So not only do you have first autos of Bronny James, they're on chrome cardstock with parallels. And to me, this set has one of the coolest parallels in the industry because it has a refractor, autograph refractor with the borders with that super cool McDonald's golden arch, which is the
Of
most,
course, who doesn't love that? Yeah.
yeah, it's the most recognizable corporate symbol probably in American history. I would challenge you to find one more recognized over the world, all over the world than the McDonald's golden arches. And it's just gonna make for a cool card and some cool parallels. And it's LeBron
I
set.
agree. Well, speaking of basketball in a little bit of a different direction, and it's I think releasing on Friday, so I guess our pod will be out tomorrow. Talk to us about Prism Choice Basketball and the difference between that and the Prism Draft Choice Basketball and
Mhm.
Prism Draft Hobby Basketball. Explain to the audience what they can be looking for as far as the differences between the two products. With Prism Draft Choice Basketball releasing this Friday.
Well, the thing about choice is the parallels. If you compare basically a box of Prism Draft, you're gonna have an autograph in a pack. You're gonna have two parallels in a pack. So that's a hobby box with 3, 6, 9, 12 parallels in it. The parallels range from, not great to, really, really freaking good when you're looking at the color blast and stuff like that. The choice has a bit different format in that, half the cards are parallels. You got eight cards a pack. You got the silver. Every pack's gonna have a silver. Then every pack's gonna have two choice exclusive parallels. Then you're gonna have your autographs. Then you're gonna have a chance at like a peacock. I don't know if you've ever seen the peacock parallel. I know you have. The
Oh
users,
no, these
yeah.
as you said the other day, Chris. The Wemby Chase and Prison Draft Choice Basketball
Hmm.
is going to be the Wemby Peacock card, and the card's not even autographed. Sorry, Chris. Hold on
Correct.
1 second. So I want to
Sure.
show off a
Sure.
couple cards in a minute. I don't know how to.
Oh, he has to. Chris has to bring in that window right there.
So, Chris, in a minute when we do the last segment, I want to be able to show off some cards on camera. Just give me a heads up.
Great. 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 I can make that happen.
Great.
So the Wimby Peacocks they're going to be beautiful. They're going to be a huge chase, and you're still going to have a chance at the other big Wimby. We hit a numbered Wimby last night, by the way, Leighton.
We did.
Yeah, numbered to 299. It's not a super rare one, but like Brett Nimitz, Jarrell's brother, hit it, and his box had the Wimby red in it, numbered to 299, and a Wimby
That's
prison
awesome.
and a
Well, good
Wimby Prism
afternoon to
Silver.
Jason, to Brett, to Brian, to Janice. Thank you all for joining us on our 4th edition of the Lunch Crew. It's been a lot of fun so far, Chris. I enjoy talking about the new releases with you because I feel like even in just the month we've been doing this,
Hmm.
I am learning a little bit more about the approach to it. And it's fun.
It is. It is. Even when it's a product that you look at the sell sheet and you can't tell heads or tails. Like Upper Deck has two products releasing, SP Authentic and SP Hockey, and I don't know what the difference is. I looked at the sell sheet; it looks like the same product to me. I don't know.
Well, you
We'll
know what we
see.
got to do? We got to get Jeremy Lee from Sports Card Live as
Hmm.
maybe he'll be kind enough to be our first guest on the Lunch Crew. But he runs Sports Card Live every Saturday night, and he has a great show. But in particular, he's a hockey guy and he knows a
Hmm.
lot about hockey. So similar to our show, Chris, I hop on there about 10:30 every Saturday night for about a 10-minute, 15-minute segment called the Vintage Spotlight, and I love to share my knowledge but I'd love to soak up what's going on there. And so my point is, let's kind of punt talking about hockey. See if we can get Jeremy to come on to talk about this whole Bedard chase and what's going on with the modern card hockey market. Jeremy, you hear us calling? We're coming for you.
Yeah, we can get Jeremy Lee to talk about the market and our GTS rep Carbon Chung to talk about the legacy and the history of SB Authentic. Cause
Yeah, no, we talked to
yeah,
Carvin. He's over at GTS, so yeah, no, Carvin's great.
yeah,
Um, all right, Chris. So we're gonna wrap up the show today with, I think, something that's interesting. I want to show off some cards, so I appreciate you giving me the ability to do that.
yeah,
This is all about leveling and trading up. And listen, it might have been a little bit different, of course, when we were kids. I'd like to think we're big kids now, Chris, but we're certainly not, Crosby's age, who's 8. That's my son. So we have a lot of amazing members of our Vintage Breaks community, of the Just Collect community. And depending on where you are in those, that journey, if you will, you might be buying into breaks, you might be completing sets, you might be liquidating everything, you could be buying everything and not selling anything, right? And anything and everything in between. And so, really good buddy from our community, Jim, who actually owns Karma Records, the sweatshirt I'm wearing today. Jim, because of a really cool set break that we had a few months back at this point, it was a 1933 Gaudi set break. And for those listening to the show that aren't that familiar with the 1933 Gaudi set, it's 90 years old. It's iconic in baseball card collecting history. It's probably one of the top 3 sets of all time, along with the T206 and the 1952 top set. And Jim participated in our 1933 Gaudi set break. For those that don't quite understand what a set break is, in the 1933 Gaudi set, there's 239 cards. We gave away every one of those cards, one buy-in, i.e., one slot equaled one card that you would get. It was all done at random. We did not do it until the entire set was sold out. And Jim, in particular, got a Babe Ruth. I think he got a Lou Gehrig from that, amongst other 1933 Gaudi cards. And so Jim decided to just jump into the deep end of the pool, which we've all done before when it's really cold. Well, in this case, he had Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig to keep him warm. And so Jim is going after the entire 1933 Gaudi set. So Jim reaches out and he's like, "Hey, Late, you got a few Hall of Famers in your eBay store I'm interested in. 33 Gaudi Rabbit Ranville, PSA 4. Excuse me, I think Jesse Haynes was in the store. This came in from a new collection. And Jim is always sending me his update. So Jesse Haynes, the Hall of Famer, he only has one card in the 33 Gaudi set. Billy Herman has 2 cards. This is a PSA 2. This was in our eBay store, I believe. So let's be real, gang. It's it's November 1st. It's bordering on the holiday season. It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's Hanukkah, it's Kwanzaa, or it's just vacation because you've worked your butt off all year. And as much as I know that Jim loves his cards, we know that Jim or any of us watching or listening to the show does not have an unlimited budget. So Jim decided to cash in some of those chips, if you will. And I'm laughing because he didn't have to cash in anything. He just texted me. He said, "Hey, Late, would you consider trading?" And I said, "Sure. Let's see if we can get something done because this is going to be, and roughly speaking, this might have been 800 or $1,000 of Hall of Famers that he needed for his Gaudi set. Well, if Jim can take cards from his collection that don't have a place anymore in it, he doesn't need it anymore. Maybe he was going to sell them. Keep in mind, gang, if you have $1,000 of cards that are all under $100 each or $200 each, that's like you're going to consign it to any of the big boys on eBay. That's 15, 18, 20% you're going to lose. Jim knows that. So in order for Jim to buy these cards for cash, let's just say, this is assuming Jim has $0, which we know that's not the case, but Jim likes cards a lot. And by the way, if you can't tell, replace Jim's name with your own. I like cards a lot. Chris likes cards a lot. Chef likes cards a lot. And the point is, if you're consuming this content, you probably like cards. So this point, or this last bit on today's show, is all about leveling up and trading up, but being kind to your neighbor, being kind to your community. I took my son to a random, when I say random, my friends lived in this development, but it was a random party to us because we didn't really know anyone else. And they welcomed us like we were their own. They fed us, they gave us candy. There was Kool-Aid, like Ector, that was, slime color for Halloween. And the point is that, as I told Jim, did I want to sell the cards for cash? Sure, I would have preferred to do that. But thankfully, I was in a position that I could trade them. And all I asked Jim was, "Hey, choose some cards you know I'd be interested in." So I thought it'd be cool before I ship Jim his cards, Chris. I wanted to show off the actual trade on the lunch crew today.
Great.
So here's the 3 cards I traded to Jim. This stack is the group that Jim traded to me. And by the way, a little footnote, I don't know if Jim gave me too much. We're going to figure that out. If he did, we're going to give him the difference in break credit to Vintage Breaks. But I wanted to show you, Jim literally took cards that I
Oh.
wouldn't say had lying around, but cards maybe he had slabbed himself, cards he's into for the right amount, cards that no longer have a place in his collection, was able
Mhm.
to roll that into saving himself $800, $900, $1,000 and put that right into 3 Gaudis that will now knock them off his list
We
and
just gave
save the
away one of
cash
those
so hopefully he
maps.
can have some extra dollars for the holiday season.
Yeah. We just gave away one of those Nat Lajway play balls like a week ago, so
But you can see these are
Matheson,
all really good names. Nothing's above $200.
Rizzuto, Eddie Matthews,
Larry
dope.
Doby, the Scooter.
Can't go wrong with Clemente.
I mean, for 1.5, I don't know. That's
Uh-huh.
pretty funky, right? For a 1.5.
Yeah,
Looks
yeah.
nice to me. Jalen Hurts, because like he sent me the list. And I was like, oh, I'll take a Hurts rookie because I know someone in Philly that'll appreciate it.
Sure.
Living in Hoboken, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Monty Irvin.
Monty Irvin, and lastly, 57 tops. Elston Howard, PSM 6. This is the point. This holiday season, if you can help a fellow collector who also happens to be a friend, a buddy, a member of your collecting community, try to do that. It'll come back to you in spades, I have no doubt. And with that, we are going to sign off. Thank you for joining us for our 4th episode of